Let's move on to business and thinking about the business financial components, the relationship between your company and whoever's funding the game. Again, I'll open it up at first and say, are there any lessons learned or things that you wouldn't do again? I mean, we heard a lot of some kind of classic tensions between developers and publishers, or between the people making the game, the people funding and marketing the game. Do any of you have more to say on that issue?
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely just went from, obviously from the DC stuff, self-managed 100% to working with EA, where there was producers and stuff off-site, to THQ, which was very different from a publisher, as far as I understood them, is that they have 0 producers or anybody off-site. So they actually, one of the few companies I think that actually, as a publisher, allows the studio to form its own identity and own creative structure. And pretty much every process you do is formed by your studio. They have no one outside that says, do it this way or do it that way, which is very interesting. So but it went from everything from companies that were like, everyone told you what they wanted in the game, to a company that's like, whatever you want. And there's a pretty big wide range of development processes out there. But definitely THQ is very interesting in their style.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jason.
Well, we're working. This is our first project working with Konami, and it was a fantastic experience for us. And I'm not just saying that because you might be watching, but it was really great. One interesting thing was it was our first experience working for a Japanese company, which really didn't make much difference to us until the boss came to visit. My producer's boss came to visit, and he didn't speak English. So I had an experience of trying to congratulate the producer in front of her boss, using her as the vehicle, thinking that maybe the boss might think that the producer is kind of making these words up, because I was to keep praise on it. This might be taking a step back, but as I was looking up at the board and seeing production, I forgot to mention it. I always try to go back to New York. One of the things that we did with Wings, and one of the reasons I think that we were a good pick for the project, is that we're in New York. It turns out that the licensor is also in New York, so that when Konami came to visit us, they could kill two proverbial birds with one stone. But it also meant for things like doing voiceover recording sessions, for doing focus testing, we had a good central location in New York for us to get everything done.
It's funny thinking about all the games that you presented. I guess only 2 of you, Jason and Frank D, are sort of traditional, make a retail product, put it on a shelf, and sell it. Ian, your game is being sold.
It's actually free. So if you have an Xbox, you can actually, even if you don't have the camera, you can grab it off of Live, and it'll tease you and tell you to buy the camera. You can see something. You can see something.
Right, so it's a sort of marketing, but also making use of the online distribution. Greg, your Fantasy War was, as you put it, a failed experiment, you could say, in online revenue models. And Frank, yours really was a form of advert gaming.
Yeah, it was promotion. I mean,
yeah.
It was a game that was designed to promote Quest, and it's like that right now is kind of our primary source of income is these kinds of large games that are sponsored games.
Right, but when you think of a sponsored game, you think of some little web game with Cheerios where you're flipping the Cheerios into a target or something. The work you guys are doing is pretty unusual.
Yeah.
I mean, what's it like to be doing marketing in the form of a game?
Yeah, well, it's weird, and it adds another layer of constraints. And it's something that we think about a lot.
I mean, did this fit into a Quest marketing campaign with big inflatable animals, or it was just...
No, it was really kind of a standalone thing, and it wasn't like... Yeah, it wasn't part of a grand scheme. It was more of an experiment. I mean, a lot of the reason that we're able to do these kinds of projects is that companies are looking for alternatives to traditional advertising. The one thing that they know is that the conventional 30-second television spot is not working. And they see games, and they can see that games are really exciting, this growing, exciting form of pop culture that reaches exactly the kind of people they want to talk to. And part of what we say to potential people like this, potential sponsors, is that what we're doing is designing a game that's not about, you're not reaching like 200 kids in Tucson. You're reaching like everyone who hears about the game and sees the game, and then it shows up on the nightly news, and it gets written up in the newspaper, and it's like those players, because it's public, those players themselves become a form of media. And in that sense, it's a little bit like the NFL on a small scale, right? I mean, the NFL, the reason that people, these companies pay to have stickers on the helmets or on the shoulder pads of these players, is not to reach the players and convince them to drink Coke or whatever, but it's to reach the millions of people who are watching this game. And so, it's interesting. And one of the things that we think of the kind of work that we're doing, one of the ways we think of it is that it's a return to some of the traditions of games, which have been around for thousands of years and have normally involved physical activity and face-to-face social interaction and kind of real-world experiences of different kinds, and figuring out how to make games like that and have them also be either be products or have some kind of commercial component so that we can get paid to make them is something we think about a lot. But it's not necessarily that every game has to be itself a commodity that you buy, like a product, a consumer product that you buy. It could also be that, like Frisbee and tennis and football, global, like soccer-style football, there could be big business around games that aren't games that, that are on a shelf, that are products that you buy and consume and then dispose of.
Ian and Greg, you two are doing current work. I mean, Greg, your current company, Manifesto Games, is really a publisher, a distributor for online games. And Ian, you mentioned that you want to work more with Xbox Live Arcade, and Freeverse has been primarily distributed online, right?
It's a little both right now.
Little both?
Actually, I'd say last few years, more retail than online.
Oh, really?
But we still have a large online component.
I mean, are you two bullish about the future of online distribution for games replacing
yeah.
retail or supplanting it in some way?
Yeah, definitely. I think the trend is you just can't. The online distribution cuts out a very large middleman and a very large headache and large expense.
I think it's ridiculous that our product consists of bytes and we have a network that's capable of distributing bytes, and instead we put it on a plastic disc, throw it in a box full of air, and ship it 3,000 miles to sit on the brick and mortar shelf somewhere.
Do you? And how about Jason and Frank D? Do you guys? Do you agree?
I'm all about online distribution. That's the way I play the games I play, and that's how we got Desert Combat out to 3 million people was all online. I mean, so I'm a very strong believer in that as well. But you also got to, it's also sad to see that there are people that can't get this stuff online. And I'm glad now it's finally come to the point where everyone, or the majority of the world has online connections. And so we'll gladly support it and keep that game in the tray, keep adding more content as more people get online.
But I'm a little sad about the retail distribution is just fantastic advertising. To have a box on the shelf in 700 CompUSAs or all the Apple stores, just the foot traffic of people who see your brand and see the game is, you can't buy that, or I can't afford that.
You can buy it.
You can't buy it, yeah. You get a media bid, but so it's, not that I'd want the retail stores to know, but it's.
I'd absolutely agree with that. The box on the shelf as a billboard is a powerful thing. And people tend to think, you can just do something online and reach millions of people. It's actually harder to make noise online.
You have to reach the community.
I see some hands coming up now that we're, yeah, go ahead, David.